All right, let's dive into this Krakow trip you've got coming up. Sounds like the Wieliczka Saltmine and Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial and Museum have really caught your eye. Two very different places. We're going to dig into the history, help you plan your time, and maybe even uncover some links between them that you hadn't thought about.
You know what I find so fascinating about Krakow is how history isn't confined to museums. It's woven into the very essence of the city. And the two sites you're interested in, they really highlight that duality.
Love that. Okay, but before we go underground or back in time, we set the scene a bit. Krakow, it was the capital of Poland once, right? What's the vibe like these days?
Great. Krakow was Poland's royal capital for centuries, actually. Today, though, it's a lively cultural hub, officially recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Just imagine wandering through Stare Miasto, that's the old town, with its medieval architecture, the bustling market square. It's like stepping back in time, really.
Okay, hold on. Wander through Stare Miasto is going straight on my to-do list. But this salt mine, it's hard to get my head around the fact that it's like entirely made of salt.
The Wieliczka Saltmine isn't just a mine, you see. It's a whole underground world carved from salt, over 700 years in the making. Chambers, chapels, there's even a lake down there. Picture descending into this dimly lit marvel where everything shimmers with this otherworldly glow.
Wow, it sounds almost magical. I'm picturing like glistening salt formations everywhere. Oh, okay. Logistically speaking, how easy is it to reach from Krakow?
Piece of cake. From Kraków-Goni, the main train station, it's just a quick 20-minute ride. And since that's where the airport train comes into, you could easily squeeze it into your arrival or departure day.
Good to know. Within this like salt-carved wonderland, is there a must-see that really stands out?
You absolutely cannot miss St. Kinga's Chapel. Picture a cathedral-sized space adorned with chandeliers, intricate sculptures, and, you guessed it, all carved from salt. Generations of miners sought solace and expressed their faith in this extraordinary setting. It's breathtaking, really.
A salt cathedral. Okay, that's going straight to the top of my list. Getting a bring a jacket vibe here, though.
Yeah.
Just how chilly does it get down there?
Let's just say the salt stalactites aren't the only things that are cool down there. It's a pretty steady 54 degrees Fahrenheit, so layers are key.
Noted. Warm layers. Got it. Now, shifting gears completely, Auschwitz-Birkenau. This is a site of immense weight, historically, and I want to approach it with the gravity it deserves.
You're right to do so. It's not just another tourist spot on the itinerary. It's a place for reflection, remembrance, understanding the depths of human cruelty, but also resilience.
Absolutely. Any recommendations on how best to approach a visit?
It really depends on your learning style. Some people find guidebooks helpful, for that self-guided experience, taking in information at their own pace. Others prefer the depth and context a guided tour can offer, especially one led by someone with a personal connection to the site.
Both options sound valuable in their own way. Logistically, how easy is it to get to Auschwitz-Birkenau from Krakow?
Quite easy. You can join organized tours leaving right from Krakow. Or, if you prefer to go independently, there are regular buses from Krakow Central Bus Station. It's conveniently located right next to the main train station, actually.
And roughly how long is that bus ride?
About an hour and a half each way. Plan for a full day to really appreciate the gravity and the scope of both Museum Rest at Auschwitz and Museum II at Birkenau.
I can imagine. It's one thing to read about it, but to actually be there, walking those grounds, it's got to be incredibly impactful.
It is. You're encountering traces of lives tragically cut short, seeing firsthand the evidence of unimaginable cruelty. But it's also a testament to the strength of the human spirit, the resilience, and the importance of remembering so that history doesn't repeat itself.
That's such a crucial point. It's
Yeah.
about honoring the past, but learning from it, carrying those lessons forward. So we have these two incredibly powerful but very different experiences, both within easy reach of Krakow. It's almost as if the city acts as a bridge between them.
It's fascinating how Krakow acts as this pivot point. On one hand, you have the almost whimsical man-made wonder of the salt mine, and on the other, the stark reality of Auschwitz-Birkenau, forcing us to confront the darkest chapters of human history.
It's like Krakow doesn't just acknowledge these different facets of human experience, it embraces them.
Exactly. It embodies that full spectrum, from creativity and ingenuity to the depths of despair and the power of resilience.
It really makes you think. Speaking of which, I tend to overpack my itinerary. Realistically, how much time should I set aside for each of these sites?
Oh, it's a common dilemma. For the Wieliczka Saltmine, I'd suggest at least half a day, factoring in travel time and the tour itself. You don't want to rush something that took over 700 years to create.
It's a really good point. Makes sense to really savor the experience.
Exactly. As for Auschwitz-Birkenau, it deserves more than just a quick visit. I'd say a full day to really grasp its gravity, its sheer scale. You'll be doing a fair bit of walking between the two museums and the exhibitions, so comfortable shoes are a must. But even more important, give yourself the time to process everything you see, everything you learn. It's a place that stays with you.
I can only imagine. You mentioned 2 main museums. What can I expect to see at each site?
So Museum I at the original Auschwitz camp, that's where you'll find the infamous Arbeit macht frei gate, a chilling reminder of the Nazis' deception. You'll also see the preserved barracks, a gas chamber, and a crematorium. These remnants really give you a stark understanding of how the camp evolved,
It sounds incredibly somber.
It is. And then Museum II, that's located at the Auschwitz II Birkenau site, which is much larger. That's where the sheer scale of the horrors becomes even more apparent. You'll see the railway tracks that transported people to their deaths, the ruins of the gas chambers and crematoria where the mass killings were carried out, and rows upon rows of those wooden barracks where prisoners were kept.
It must be overwhelming to witness.
There are quiet areas within the museum grounds set aside for reflection. Often just talking about it, what you've seen, with someone who's there with you, that can be helpful too.
Sharing those reflections with someone who's experienced it alongside you, that's got to be so important.
Ah.
Are there any personal stories or artifacts from the museums that have really stuck with you?
Oh, countless stories could be shared, each one more heartbreaking than the last. One that comes to mind, though, is Samuel Willenberg, one of the few who survived the Treblinka extermination camp. He dedicated his life after the war to keeping the memory alive, even returning to Auschwitz to honor his fellow prisoners.
It's incredible the strength it must have taken for him to do that.
And within the museums, you'll find so many artifacts that they personalize the experience. Shoes, suitcases with names etched on them, children's toys even. These everyday objects, they take on a profound weight, don't they? A tangible connection to the lives that were lost.
It sounds like those objects speak volumes, even in their silence. You mentioned earlier that some of the tour guides have personal connections to Auschwitz-Birkenau.
That's right. Some are descendants of survivors. Others are locals whose families were directly impacted by the Holocaust. Their insights, their family stories, they add this deeply personal and moving layer to the experience,
Hearing those firsthand accounts must make the experience even more powerful. Are there any specific tours you recommend, or tips for maybe how to choose a guide?
The Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial and Museum website is an excellent resource. They have a variety of tours in different languages, all led by certified guides. It's best to book in advance, especially during the busier months.
I'll be sure to do that. Now, let's shift back to the Wieliczka Saltmine for a moment. I read somewhere that you can actually attend Mass down there in the Salt Chapel.
You heard right. St. Kinga's Chapel, that awe-inspiring space we talked about, it's a fully functioning church. They hold regular Mass there, weddings, even concerts.
I'm trying to picture attending Mass in a salt chapel. Wow, what an experience.
It really speaks to how deeply the salt mine is woven into the fabric of Polish culture and history.
Speaking of history, we've mentioned St. Kinga's Chapel a few times now, but who was St. Kinga?
Legend has it that Kinga, a Hungarian princess who became a Polish saint, was set to marry a Polish prince. As part of her dowry, she requested that a salt mine in Hungary be given to Poland.
That salt was incredibly valuable back then, right?
Yeah. Oh, the salt trade wasn't just important, it was essential. It was the lifeblood of Krakow's economy. It really shaped the city's growth for centuries. And as the story goes, Kinga, she threw her engagement ring down into that Hungarian salt mine. And when they started mining in Poland, they found her ring embedded in a block of salt. It was seen as a miracle, of course. And St. Kinga became the patron saint of salt miners.
What a story. I love how it connects to the salt mine's significance.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of which, you mentioned it dates back over 700 years. How much of this massive mine can you actually explore on a tour?
The Wieliczka Saltmine, it actually has over 178 miles of tunnels, 9 levels deep. Don't worry, you won't be trekking through all of them on the tour.
That's a relief.
The tourist route, it covers about 2 miles, and it showcases the most impressive chambers and chapels, the underground lakes. But even that little glimpse, it really gives you a sense of its vastness.
2 miles of salt-carved wonders. Wow. I can already picture the Instagram photos. Speaking of which, any restrictions on photography inside the mine? You're good to go with photos. They even allow flash photography, which is pretty rare for a historical site.
Perfect. Do you need to book tickets in advance for the salt mine, or can you just show up?
It's always a good idea to book online, especially if you're going during peak season. It can get pretty crowded.
Good to know. Now, I'm curious about those unexpected connections you mentioned earlier. How did these two sites, the salt mine and Auschwitz-Birkenau, fit into the larger picture of Krakow? How do they connect? So the Wieliczka Saltmine, it really played a crucial role in Krakow's growth, putting it on the map, attracting merchants, artisans, fueling the economy for centuries.
Absolutely. And, as Krakow prospered, so did its Jewish community. They established Kazimierz, the Jewish Quarter, and it became this vibrant center of Jewish life and culture.
Which makes, well, the events of the Holocaust even more poignant, doesn't it? Knowing that Krakow was once home to such a thriving Jewish population, it's like these two sites, the salt mine and Auschwitz-Birkenau, they're like two sides of the same coin, showing the vast spectrum of humanity. You've hit the nail on the head. The horrors of Auschwitz-Birkenau, they cast a long shadow over the city, it's true. A stark reminder of how fragile peace can be and the devastating consequences of intolerance. But it also highlights how crucial it is to remember, to learn from the past and strive for a world that's more just, more compassionate.
It's given me so much to think about as I plan this trip. It's one thing to read about these places, but to actually experience them firsthand, to stand in those spaces and feel the weight of history. It's got to be a whole other level of understanding.
There's nothing quite like it. Travel, it has a way of opening our minds and hearts, connecting us to history in a way that books or documentaries simply can't replicate.
It's about those contrasts, right? Those unexpected connections that really make you challenge your perspectives.
Exactly. And Krakow, well, you'll find that there. It's a city of layers. It invites you to delve deeper, explore those contrasts, and you come away with a deeper understanding of the world.
I have a feeling this trip is going to stay with me long after I've unpacked my bags.
I have no doubt. Krakow has a way of getting under your skin, leaving a mark.
Hopefully in a good way.
Absolutely, a good way. It's a city that lingers in your memory, beckoning you to return and uncover more of its secrets.
Well, you've certainly given me the tools to do just that. Any final words of wisdom before we wrap up this deep dive? Things you wish you knew before your first trip to Krakow.
Don't be afraid to embrace the unexpected. Krakow is best explored on foot. Wander down those side streets, pop into a milk bar, one of those traditional Polish cafeterias, for a cheap and tasty meal. Strike up a conversation with the locals. You never know what hidden gems you'll find.
Oh, I'm all about embracing the unexpected. Those unplanned moments often turn into the best travel stories.
I couldn't agree more. And don't forget your curiosity. Krakow, it rewards those who are eager to learn, to ask questions, dive headfirst into that rich tapestry of history and culture.
Well, my curiosity is officially piqued. My suitcase is already half full of comfy shoes and warm layers.
Sounds like you're well on your way to an incredible trip.
I think so too. Thanks so much for being my guide today. It feels like I've had a crash course in all things Krakow.
It was my pleasure. And remember, travel is more than just checking things off a list. It's about opening yourself up to new experiences, different ways of seeing the world, and the power of place. And Krakow, well, it's a place that has that power to transform.
I have a feeling you're right. Thanks again for joining me on this deep dive. And to you listening, safe travels and bon voyage.